Welcome, my fellow sons and daughters of Sigmar. I hope you guys are all doing well, and today, guys, we're back with an Empire vs. Wood Elf showdown. It's going to be the Volkswagen facing off against Mel Gibson and Hadries, coming in with a super wild deployment. And I have to say, as soon as I loaded into the game, I was like, where is this cursed Wood Elf army? What tricks does he have lying in the trees? I thought, for example, maybe he had a bunch of stock units, maybe mass archers like Way Watchers and Deepwood Scouts only, some really weird army, but no. I looked up on the hill, and at the dawn of the third day, I saw Mel Gibson running over the crest, and I have to say it was certainly very, very scary. Now, all jokes aside, as far as my army goes, it is going to be 2 Knights of the Blazing Sun and 2 Empire Knights. They all perform very well against Wood Elves, especially the Knights of the Blazing Sun. Great shock damage, they have 42 weapon strength, the charge bonus of 78. If they're facing off against light armor, man, they can get some huge damage in. And Empire Knights are a bit of a roadblock, yes, but honestly, they don't do terribly at fighting like Wild Riders and Glade Riders and Dryads and things like that. So 2 and 2, we got 4 Huntsmen in total, and the front line's going to be Spearmen with shields, and then Volkmar the Grim is here as well, just to kind of cause some disruption and just be an absolute beast for sure. And I do have double caster, so I have a Burning Head caster, and then I do also have a Net caster as well. I've kind of been on this bit of a kick of doing this, because a lot of Wood Elf players I play against do come in with like double Waystalker or a Glade Lord plus a Waystalker, and with Nets, Prey of Anathrema, or just even Focus Fire, I find that I lose my caster a lot in this matchup. And, you know, Burning Head is super good against Wood Elves, and so too is the Nets of Amatoch on the Light Wizard, right? So I feel like it's a pretty good little split. Now for Hadries, he does have the Wild Riders, Dryads. It's basically just a huge rush with a little bit of support coming in from 2 Way Watchers to shoot my heavy cavalry. And he is going to have the high ground, right? I'm going to be pushing up the hill or having to fight uphill. So certainly a very, very cool deployment from him. So here's the first charge. Wild Riders charging into my Knights of the Blazing Sun. He does get the downhill charge on me, but I think with the support of the Bright Wizard as well as the Light Wizard, I should win this fight. You can see I do take a fair amount of shock damage. It's actually very even. But as soon as I saw the Dryads piling in, I was like, oh, it's time, baby. You better pray. Burning Head comes in, absolutely roasts these units. Brutal damage coming in as that entire Wood Elf core just kind of gets melted down by the Burning Head. In the meantime, more reinforcements coming in. Dryads plus Mel Gibson certainly going to be very scary and will force me back. The Knights of the Blazing Sun get terror routed, and I'm like, nope, I do not want to stay there and have my casters get killed by Orion. But a lot of backline pressure as well. We have Glade Riders with spears collapsing on my Huntsmen here. My Spearmen and defensive cavalry on the other side have been forced to kind of deal with the Wild Rider rush, but for the most part, I would say we're getting pretty good trades. Huntsmen are going to be making a consolidated retreat here. So the Huntsmen, the 3 units, falling back, though Hadries, of course, the very savvy veteran here, does have some Glade Riders kind of lurking and waiting to push into my backfield. Here's a Soulfire Bombardment going down to the Dryads and a Banishment attempt here on the Way Watchers in the back, but that was probably a mistake. Way Watchers are very, very loosely packed, so it didn't really do much. Nice little Pendulum coming down there from Hadries does kind of tickle the Spearmen and probably will lead to that formation breaking and opening up another hole in the floodgates here. Spearmen holding pretty well against Dryads with the support of the casters. The Grand Hammer of Sigmar here doing some good work, making my Spearmen a little bit more kind of prolific there in combat. And Knights of the Blazing Sun have now retreated. I really thought, okay, maybe I need to go back there and deal with his archers, but at the end of the day, I think securing my Huntsmen is a little bit safer. I can basically just screen his archers with Spearmen and Sheep units and let Volkmar the Grim kind of do the business here. Now, Orion getting pretty hog wild, deciding to push into the backfield, so we do intercept him with the Knights of Sigmar. The Empire Knights do get in there and are able to hold up Orion, which is certainly good. He was recently nerfed. I don't know if you guys knew this, but he used to have 40%, I think, resist. Or let me go ahead and double check. I can't remember where the nerf was. Yeah, 20% physical, and the Cloak of Visha now only gives 20% instead of 44 or 40. So he's a lot easier to kill now. So seeing him a little bit trapped here, I pull in the Volkswagen, I pull in my 2 casters. I'm like, let's go in. Let's go all in, man. So all of our bows going to be shooting into Orion. He's large. He's lightly armored. He is pretty much the ideal candidate for my Huntsman to kind of focus down here. We do also drop a net of Amatoch, just to make sure that Orion wouldn't be able to escape here and maybe push back and get to his formation. So hopefully we'll be able to take him out. Unfortunately, some Wild Riders do get around the flank and are going to be getting a brutal charge here into the Huntsmen. Here it comes. Huntsmen do get shreked pretty good. 62, 61, 60, and they are not feeling great after receiving that mighty charge from the Huntsmen. Down to 52 models, and you know, he can't win all the engagements. However, I think the whole trade was worth it. Orion, the mighty avatar of the forest, has fallen. His hooves, man, that's a lot of arrows. That is certainly, I think that's some friendly fire. Those look like Wood Elf arrows. It looks like they came from this direction. Perhaps a little bit of politics going on in the forest. Maybe Orion wasn't terribly popular. Who knows? But Volkmar the Grim has now gotten into the back line. His biggest natural predator in the form of Orion is off the battlefield, and that's one of the reasons why you do see Orion in this matchup in general, is that he's pretty good against Volkmar, right? He can chase him down, he can handedly defeat Volkmar in combat, but now that he's offline, Volkmar is more or less going to be having free range. Spearmen and Knights of the Blazing Sun, of course, cleaning up the flanks here. And it does look like it's going to be it for the Wood Elves. I don't think they have too many tools left on the table here. We have the Way Watchers and 1 unit of Way Watchers, of course, who have ripped some pretty good volleys. Probably accruing close to over 1,000 value, up to 800 right now, but they'll probably be able to get over 1,000 before the battle is said and done. Dryad surging forward, Huntsman, hands down one of the best units in this matchup. Huntsmen are pretty much good against the entire Wood Elf roster. The only thing Huntsmen, like, I'm trying to think, is there anything they're not good against? No, I mean, even Treemen, yeah, they're armored, but still they're large targets. And Treemen are pretty terrible against the Empire in general. They really struggle against like basic Empire Spearmen. Although an Ancient Treeman as a Lord is a really good, cheap, cost-effective option. Because he brings your magic and, you know, he only costs 1,300 with just Earthblood. So, but in general, I think basic Treemen aren't going to be terribly common here, right? So Huntsmen, yeah, I feel like they're good against the entire Wood Elf roster. They tear apart Wild Riders, Glade Riders. They can shoot against enemy bows pretty effectively because of their loose formation. You don't want to be trading, you know, Huntsmen into Glade Guard, but they can do it okay. They can fill the role and certainly perform. But again, heavy cavalry really are the MVPs. You really bully the Wood Elves in terms of the cav game. You can see the Wild Riders there just getting absolutely crushed by these badass-looking Knights of Sigmar. Well, they're not of Sigmar. I know Knights of the Blazing Sun have their own thing going on, but the screen says Sigmar right here, so we're just going to roll with it. And, you know, they were fighting under Volkmar the Grim, right? So perhaps these Knights of the Blazing Sun perhaps had a little bit of a change of perspective. So going back here into the breakdown, you can see that Volkmar the Grim doing good work. 1,400, I mean, he was full health, right? 1,400 on those knights. These knights over here got 7. Even the Empire Knights did okay, I guess. Now, there were more roadblocks, but yeah, Huntsmen are just so good in that matchup. And, you know, the spears are quite cost effective. It's basically like checkers, right? Dryads beat spearmen, but Volkmar just crushes all Dryads. Heavy cavalry crush Dryads, and that's the problem. It's a tricky one for the Wood Elves. I feel like Hadries and I were discussing this after the game, talking about how Empire players have recently kind of discovered that Huntsmen are really good against Wood Elves. We've been seeing them in the World Championship, and it's certainly been tricky. I've seen the Wood Elves losing most of those games. Granted, they can certainly win it. I've had a couple builds that you'll be seeing soon up on the channel that are pretty good against this style of play. This is very meta. You're going to be seeing this with Wood Elves against Empire. More or less, maybe one caster. A lot of people won't do the double caster. Sometimes they will, but this is pretty meta. Sometimes you'll see Volkmar. There's other options. You can even go Marcus Wolfheart with nets. Which is, you know, not bad for sure. So yeah, there's all kinds of crazy options. But again, well played to Hadries. It was certainly a fun game. Poor Mel Gibson certainly got just focused down by those Huntsmen pretty badly. That was a tough one for him. So now I'll show you guys the build I've been kind of messing with that has been having some success against the Empire with Wood Elves. It's a little bit of an experimental build, but nonetheless, I think it has some teeth. So you go here, you get the Ancient Tree Man. He is durable. He's hard to kill. He's cheap. So basically, you just bring him as a big source of terror and Earthblood. So from here, you get double Zote. Actually, you probably don't even need the Power Stone. You get double Zote. Zotes actually do pretty well against the Empire Cavalry if you're really on point with your Flesh to Stone, for example. So let's say a Knight of the Blazing Sun is charging into a Zote. You drop the Flesh to Stone. You're not going to take much damage. It's actually really nice. And on top of that, they lower magic resist and do magic damage. So the magic resist on the Knights of the Blazing Sun pretty much is nullified by the Zotes. So aside from that, I was doing something like this, where you get 2 Dryads, 3 Spears, and it's so hard to avoid the Empire Cavalry charges, but nonetheless, you got to give it the good old college try. And in case they go double artillery, you pretty much have to bring double Waystalker. I think it's really strong too, because in that game, you can snipe the casters really well, right? So something like this, and the rest of the army is probably going to be missile play, a triple Glade Guard Starfire Shaft, and one with poison, just to imbue poison on any target you're shooting at. So these guys can usually outrange and outtrade the Huntsmen just simply due to their range advantage. And also from a cost perspective, they're a little bit cheaper than Huntsmen, I think. Actually, I can't remember. How much are Huntsmen? I think Huntsmen might actually be 650 as well. Or maybe 700. Yeah, they're 650. Okay, so it's pretty similar, actually. But you get good armor piercing on these guys. And against Empire, that is very cost effective. So you shut down the Empire Heavy Cavalry with the Zotes, or try your best to do that. And you get 1 Glade Rider as well. The Glade Rider is basically there just to chase down missile pieces, be an annoying pressure piece, and, you know, do his thing. And from here, you can just throw chevrons on all these units, and yeah, however you want to do that. But this is build that I tested. Hadries and I tried it out. It was pretty effective. You'll be seeing a replay with it soon. It was able to stop the cavalry and the arrows of Kurnus, deal with artillery, Hellblaster's cannons, and the Ancient Tree Man is hard for Volkmar to kill, and you know, he's really cheap for what you're getting. You're getting a big monstrous beat stick. How much? Like, look at this. The basic Tree Man is 1,500, right? And like, what is the stat difference? If anything, yeah, the basic Tree Man's a little bit better in combat, like, but barely, you know. And this guy comes with Earthblood. He causes terror. It's like, yeah, I feel like this guy's like a pretty decent little steal. So that's pretty much it. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this one. We'll be back with more juicy replay soon. And thanks again for joining, guys. Take care.